All right, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to untangle the incredibly messy, highly dramatic, and massively testable world of insider trading liability. Seriously, it's like a soap opera. But before we get into exactly who is going to jail and who is just caught in the crossfire, I need to mention that this Explainer is brought to you by CertFuel. If you're studying for the SIE, you really need to check them out at certfuel.com. They've got this full course loaded with adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards, and literally unlimited practice exams that are weighted exactly like the real thing. It is hands down the absolute best way to make sure these concepts actually stick in your brain for test day. Okay, let's pivot right into our story of a hot stock tip gone terribly, terribly wrong. Section 1. The insider trading dominoes. So most people think insider trading is just one greedy person in a fancy suit clicking by on a secret stock tip. But in reality, it is a chain reaction. Look at this flow right here. It's like a chain of dominoes. Every single person who passes along or acts on the secret can face severe legal liability, not just the one who ultimately executes the trade. To make this stick, we're going to follow a cast of characters who are having a very, very bad day. We start with step 1, Ivan the insider. Ivan has a juicy secret. In step 2, Ivan whispers that secret to his buddy, Tommy the tipper. And finally, in step 3, Tommy passes it to Tina the tippee. Listen, the financial cops are not just going after Tina for making the trade, they are tracing that information all the way back up this chain. Now, the crucial point here is understanding where the chain actually begins. Let's look at Ivan for a second. What makes Ivan an insider in the first place? Well, it's not just a fancy job title. An insider is defined as a corporate officer, a director, or, and you got to remember this highly testable number, someone who owns 10% or more of the company's shares. If you own 10%, you are in the club. You've got access to the inner workings of the company, and with that access comes a massive legal responsibility. And that responsibility is protecting this exact concept, material non-public information. We're going to call it MNPI from here on out. Let's spell that out so it's permanently burned into our memories. Material non-public information. Material means the information is so juicy that a reasonable investor would actually use it to make a decision to buy or sell. Non-public simply means the rest of the world doesn't know it yet. It hasn't been blasted out on a press release or the news. Ivan has a strict fiduciary duty to keep that MNPI completely locked down. Section 2. Who gets in trouble? Of course, Ivan doesn't keep it locked down, does he? He runs his mouth. So how does the liability break down when this MNPI leaks down our domino chain? Let's go through it. First, we have the insider, Ivan. He's directly liable because he breached his fiduciary duty to the company by weaponizing the MNPI. Next row, the tipper. That's Tommy. He passed the MNPI along. He is liable if the person he tipped trades on it. Third row, the tippee, Tina. She received the MNPI and traded on it. She's liable because she acted on a secret she definitely shouldn't have had. And finally, introducing a new character to the mix, the controlling person. Let's call her Fiona the firm. This is the employer or supervisor. Fiona is liable for failing to maintain adequate procedures to stop this entire circus from happening in the first place. Okay, pause the explainer. I want you to stop and really think about this question because it's a massive exam trap. The exam loves to test the boundaries of this rule. Let's say Tommy tells Tina the hottest MNPI in the world. Tina hears it, she now possesses the secret, but she just goes home, watches TV, and never actually executes a trade. Does she go to jail just for knowing it? Think about it for a second. The answer is absolutely no. Simply possessing the information is not a crime. The crime is acting on the information. You have to actually execute a trade based on that MNPI, or you have to act as a new tipper and pass it to someone else who then trades. If Tina just sits on her couch, keeps her mouth shut, and leaves her brokerage account closed, she is legally in the clear. Now here is another huge exam trap to watch out for. Contrast Tina's situation with Tommy, the tipper. Let's say Tommy hears the tip from Ivan. Tommy tells Tina. Tina goes and makes $1 million trading the stock. But Tommy, he was completely broke. He didn't buy or sell a single share himself. Is Tommy liable? Yes. The moment Tina trades, Tommy is fully liable as the tipper, even if his own brokerage account has a balance of literally 0. Section 3. Building information barriers. So to stop these dominoes from falling before the first tip is even whispered, firms are legally required to build internal systems. Remember our fourth character, Fiona the firm? Well, Fiona is a broker-dealer, and she has to maintain what are called information barriers, which were historically known as ethical walls. Picture this. On the left side, you have the investment banking department. They're advising companies, putting together massive, highly secretive mergers. They are practically swimming in MNPI. On the right side, you have the trading desk. They're buying and selling stocks all day. Fiona the firm must put an information barrier right down the middle so the traders on the right absolutely never hear about the secret mergers happening on the left. But hey, here is another major exam trap to watch out for. The test will try to bait you by describing a scenario where a firm puts the investment bankers on the 10th floor and the traders on the 9th floor and asks if that's enough. No, the barrier must prevent the flow of information, not just physical separation. You can't just put a giant potted plant between the desks or stick them on different floors if they're all still sharing the exact same computer network or chatting in the same elevator. The core purpose is stopping the firm's traders from acting on advisory information, period. And if that information leaks across the barrier and a rogue trader buys stock based on a pending merger, Fiona the firm is in deep, deep trouble. As a controlling person, Fiona can be held fully liable, even if she personally never traded a single stock, simply because her firm failed to maintain adequate procedures to prevent the misconduct. Ignorance is just not an excuse for the supervisor. Section 4, the should have known test. Let's bring the narrative back to Tina the tippee for the ultimate courtroom showdown. Let's say Tina did make the trade. The financial cops haul her into court. Her defense? Hey, Tommy never explicitly used the words, "This is inside information, I just thought he was a really smart guesser." Will that defense work? No way. The legal standard states, should have known is an objective test, not a subjective one. This means Tina cannot just play dumb on the stand. It doesn't matter if, subjectively, in her own head, she claims she was totally innocent and naive. The law looks objectively at the situation. It asks, would a reasonable person in Tina's exact position have recognized that this tip was material non-public information? Let's look at this absolutely ridiculous yet completely realistic scenario. Imagine you're in your backyard flipping burgers on the grill. Your neighbor, who you know is a high-ranking corporate officer at a massive tech firm, leans over the fence holding a flaming BBQ spatula and says, "Man, I'm stressed. Our earnings figures next week are going to show a 50% drop in revenue. Don't tell anyone." He never formally whispers the phrase, "This is inside information," but you go short the stock anyway. A judge is going to look at that and say, come on. Any reasonable person would know those unannounced earnings were MNPI. Claiming naivety does not defeat liability. All right, let's rapid-fire summarize the 3 biggest exam takeaways from our whole domino chain. First, tippers are liable even if they never trade. Tommy is on the hook the second Tina executes. Second, a tippee does not have to be a corporate insider to be guilty. Tina doesn't work for the company, she just listened to a neighbor, but she's still liable. And third, and honestly most importantly, liability strictly follows the information. Every single person who passes or acts on that MNPI is a falling domino. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Next time you're taking a practice quiz and you see a scenario about someone overhearing a juicy secret at a coffee shop or over a backyard fence, ask yourself, if you were in Tina's shoes, would a reasonable person have known better? Adopt that objective test mindset permanently. If you do, you'll be absolutely bulletproof on exam day when they try to trick you with these insider trading scenarios. Keep practicing, keep studying those characters, and you're gonna nail this.